Hey y'all, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Internet Develops which was created to support you in designing and living your best life. Today we have on here our special guest, Miss Alicia Watson. She's an entrepreneur and she's going to come on and talk to us about her business and her experience altogether. So, hey Alicia.
Thanks, Annette. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you for saying yes.
Absolutely.
Um, Can you tell my audience and myself just a little bit more about yourself?
Okay, hi, developers. I run a company called Ali Watson Media out of the Fort Washington, Maryland area, DMV area. And I serve primarily small businesses and entrepreneurs in giving them brand videos and brand photography. I'm also an author. I just wrote my first book, which is called Secret Donuts. It's a journey to getting over your weight, aligned with God, and into your purpose. I'm a playwright. And the last play I wrote was with my husband. It's called Whisper. We did a play and conference combination in September. We'll be bringing that back again in 2021. Let's see. I am a mother of two, wife of one, follower of Christ, and I have a podcast called Maybe You're Like Me with Alicia Watson. I think I covered just about everything that's going on in this season, but
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And y'all, I just want to say, me and my boyfriend, we went to her play, her and her husband's play, and it was amazing. So if you're in the area, y'all have to check out Whispers because it was really the bomb.
Thank you.
Yes. So what made you decide to get into the media industry? Like, how did that come about?
I'm an artist. I've always been interested in art. I worked in the government like right out of college, but I studied communication and media studies as my major in college, and also sociology. And so it's always been like my heart in the back of my mind to actually do something with that. I just didn't see it as viable when I first came out of school because I didn't have a job. So I went back home, worked for about 10 months, and ended up getting a good government job. So that's how I ended up in the DMV area. I'm originally from Grand Rapids, Michigan. And yeah, so I worked for about almost 10 years, and I just really felt an urging to strike it out on my own. I never really viewed myself as an entrepreneur before, but maybe like 10 years before, I got a prophecy that I would be working for myself by the age of 33, and I quit my job at 32. So I always kind of knew it was on the horizon to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't know in what capacity, but I've always been an artist, and getting into media, doing the videography and the filmmaking, in my mind was a way to get the messages of our plays out further and faster, because it takes a long time to produce a production. There's like months and months and months of rehearsals, and there's like a lot of behind the scene work that goes into it for just one night.
Right.
That's presented to maybe a limited audience, whether it be, in a stadium or like to like a high school auditorium. It's still only so many people that you can see at that, or that can see what you're doing at that specific time. So I felt like doing the videos would help us to get all of the messages out more frequently, consistently, constantly to just a wider audience. And so that's how I ended up in media. Ending up in and using it for entrepreneurship is how I ended up using it to make a living.
So, right. Okay. And when you decided that you wanted to actually make this a business, what were some of the steps that you took to actually make this a valuable business?
Okay, so first I did a lot of studying, a lot of research into what it would look like as a business, because, as artists, it's easier for us to want to do the art and create because it gives us just like a rush. We're excited to do it. But for it to be a business, we had to actually charge for that. So figuring out what like were going rates for the work that I wanted to do, figuring out what kind of work I wanted to do, which kind of happened in the process of working. On the other end, like knowing that I had a family, having to speak it, talk it over with Ray, my husband first, to see how that would look for us if we were just to drop down potentially to one income, because starting out, I knew I wasn't probably going to be making what I made on my job. And so I didn't take the approach that most people take, which is like making sure you can replace your income first, just because I felt I was led at that moment to leave. And so I actually left my job without like a roster of clients. I think the first day I was working, I was like dropping off clothes at, the thrift store and just hanging out, but I had just an idea of what I was going to be doing. So other steps we took was like taking a look at our finances and really like dumbing down the things that we used and needed. We got rid of cable way before it was a wave. We got rid of a lot of things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got down to one car because, one car got to the point where we couldn't really fix it. But then because I was home, I didn't really need another car at that point. Just really looked for ways to cut expenses because we knew that initially we wouldn't be bringing in that income as I was building.
So it sounds like entrepreneurship for you, like in the beginning, was a sacrifice, like a lot of entrepreneurs, like it's a sacrifice in the beginning.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I think even, I think it usually is. If you get really, really lucky with it and go viral and it's just all of a sudden it's like a big like money maker or something, you have to still have the skill set and the mindset to continue on with that kind of success. So anybody who strikes out, it's going to be a bit of a sacrifice of not just like your money, but like your time, your emotional stability, because it's a whole different world where you have to create a paycheck as opposed to agreeing to a paycheck up front and going to work and knowing that you're going to have that consistent paycheck regardless, as long as you show up and do, at least the minimum of what they've asked you to do. It's a totally different game when you're striking out on your own, and especially when you're a solopreneur like I was and like I continue to be, where you kind of wear all the hats in your business and you have to learn these different skill sets and also learning yourself. It's sacrificial,
right?
Definitely. It helps you to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Really.
So I did have a question that popped into my mind.
Sure.
Are you the first entrepreneur in your family? Like this, did that spark? How did you even think about entrepreneurship?
I'm not the first entrepreneur in my family. My uncle, he has a restaurant called Wing Heaven. And it is, it's very successful in Michigan. It's in this area, DMV, it's in Atlanta, it's been in Vegas, Ohio, it's been all over the place. So he's been doing that for like over 20 some years. And along with that, it's been a concert promoter and all that. So I've seen him, work his entrepreneurial skills. And my grandfather, his father before that was also, an entrepreneur. So it's kind of been there. It's just not something I was ever interested in. Like I never really felt like I had the personality to be an entrepreneur, because in my mind, like I watched the movies and I, understand what I understood about being a business person, so to speak. And I just felt like the personality that you needed to have was just like extroverted, very aggressive, kind of type A, kind of get it done, intimidating type of personality. I just never saw myself as that way. Because I never saw myself as like either a business major going into business. But like I said, I got to this point because I heard it in a prophecy, and just kind of knowing it was a part of my purpose and part of my vision or the vision for my life to be an entrepreneur and not work for anybody by the age of 33. I carried that with me. So I knew it was coming, but it wasn't necessarily something that I wanted. I kind of still don't want it. A lot of times while I'm in it, I'm like, I don't want this. I actually thought this week, like, where can I work? Like, it's not something I always want to do. It's really hard.
Yes.
It does pay off.
Yeah. So do you still feel like you have to have that personality, that extroverted personality to be an entrepreneur? No.
I don't think so. I think it helps. You have to like down some of the qualities sometimes, especially like networking and stuff. You have to kind of step outside of that comfort zone and really be able to utilize or access that side of yourself to really like take that introversion, that introspectiveness, and be able to project it on outwardly so that you can connect with people, because connection is a big part of business. And I think everybody, what I feel now is like everybody who does anything has their own way of doing it. And I think we're best served when we are authentically our best selves.
Yes.
And we're, embracing that and embodying that. So, while I felt like that was the way that you needed to be successful, I think part of the reason why my path has been, or my journey has been so much slower, is because I have been concurrently on a self-exploration journey in addition to an entrepreneurship journey. And so the more that I learn of myself, the more that I find out about myself, the more that I'm able to infuse that into my business and make my business work for me. Because ultimately the business, from my perspective, I got into this for reasons that didn't involve just being, a person who earns money. Otherwise I could have stayed on my job. It's important to have a business and not be a hobby, that it earns money, but embracing the qualities that you have and bringing whatever you have to it, like to your business, whatever your vision, your mission, your purpose were, are more important to me than, being this type of person or personality that's going to get it done, that's going to get the money, that's going to, close the sale, that's going to, do what they need to do to reach whatever goal that superficial goal is that qualifies as success for them, but it doesn't really like fill their soul.
Yes.
So I don't necessarily believe so now, but I believe it's helpful if your mission is to get, to a certain space in that way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I definitely agree. Especially being somebody that I would consider myself introverted. I'm definitely not extroverted, and I have to really push outside of myself, like especially when it comes to networking and like that. So you do have to really find like an equal balance. Because I'm okay with being at home.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not affected by the corona like that because I like being home in my house with my family. Mm-hmm. So I definitely understand. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I like to ask entrepreneurs is about the challenges that on this journey, what challenges did you face that stood out the most to you that, I guess transformed your journey or that really just stood out to you, some challenges?
I think I go back to that challenge of like not believing you are and you have everything that you need. I think for me, especially like in this age of social media, in this age of like, having more access to more people, meaning you can be exposed to the way that more people are doing things. It's just, one, you can be inundated with other people's ideas on how you should be doing what you're doing. And two, you can get very confused by watching people who do something similar to you, or are in your industry, but they don't have your particular mission or vision or purpose for what you're doing. I think for me, again, my journey has been slow because it's also a journey of self-discovery and really trying to figure out what it is that I want outside of business and letting that guide my business. You know what I mean? So I kind of had to reverse engineer it. You come into it and it's like, we want to be a millionaire by 30 or a millionaire by 40, and we want to pull down $100,000 weeks and $10,000 days and all, and it's all well and good. But there's also certain things that come with that.
Right.
And so you come into it, one, thinking that that's the measure of success, you're never going to feel successful. Two, if you come into it trying to pursue that, now realizing what it takes to get that, what you may lose to get that, you're going to find yourself disenchanted. And that kind of affected me early on. I had a green eye of envy sometimes, and I look at people and I just be like hating. But like I look at groups like within my industry of people that were able to connect. And again, I was an introvert, so it's just like, oh, I'm not a part of the popular crowd and all that.
Right.
I'm not realizing like who is for me is for me. What God has for me is for me. What I'm supposed to do is what I'm supposed to do. And just really being on a path to find that is what really has transformed my business. Because as I accepted like being myself and being fully authentic to who I am and what I actually want for myself, for my family, and then as a result, like the impact that my business will have, it's really just given me a piece to just embrace and live in my authentic self. And I think that's invaluable, even if it's not seen as the quote unquote level of success for other people or their measure of success. If I feel peace within my heart and peace at night when I go to sleep for what I've done with my day or what I've done with my business, and I think that's a better measure of success for me. And I think that's been transformative to be able to live in my truth, so to speak.
Wow. So you would say that your challenge was not being able to, or just like having that green eye a little bit, or sometimes being envious, but what helped you to overcome that was living in your truth and just being authentic.
Exactly. Exactly. And it took time, you know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like, you had to try it out to see what it is that you don't want before you can really define what it is that you do, you
That's
know? Yeah. But I say you summed it up perfectly.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, when you're starting a business and when
Hmm.
you're having a business, you're maintaining a business, I always tell my people that like you have to seek help for your success and you need a team. So on
Yeah.
this journey, what help did you seek in the beginning up until now, and who's a part of your team?
Yeah. I agree with that. So in the beginning, I hired for my weaknesses. I'm a person who does not enjoy math of any kind. So one of my first hires was my accountant and bookkeeper, and then my second was my lawyer because I believe in doing things like legitimately. And so I wanted to have ironclad contracts that were specific to my business and what I needed to do. And I wanted my money right so that I didn't have to live in fear of like the IRS or the fear of me not doing it right, or just to learn an entire skill set that I don't need to learn. Like I need to know what's going on with my money. I need to know how like the basics of it, but it's just so much. It was just a better resource for me, beyond like being able to categorize, my items and stuff. She could provide like insight and advice, and it's something about letting somebody operate in their area of genius and in their expertise to partner along with you to help you reach success. You just got to hire the right people.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so those are my first two of my team. I'm a solopreneur. I am a company of one. I will hire out and contract to people, but another part of me finding and living in my truth is that what I don't want is employees, and I
Mm.
don't want a team. But that, struggling with that led me to, finding my like tribe of people who believed or thought the same way, and just kind of learning that, I can just hire contractors if I need to, and hire people to assist me on a per project basis, or for a limited time, but not have to deal with like whatever headaches I perceive that come with having a full team on staff. And
Mhm.
so it allows me to still scale and do what I need to do, but not have a life that's not authentic to the life that I want.
Right.
Just find a solution. So yeah.
Oh, I love that. Oh, and especially hiring for your weaknesses, not
Mhm.
trying to learn a whole new skill set, because I feel like I used to sometimes struggle with that, like trying to learn, not wanting to pay nobody to do it, but then you're paying with your time when you have to
Mhm.
learn all that stuff.
Mistake if you do it wrong.
Right, right. So I love that, and I'm stealing that. I like that. Hire for your weaknesses. I like it.
I don't think I created it, but it
Oh,
is good. Like it's good. Yeah.
I love that. Um, so I know you're a mom and you're an active mom with active children. And how do you balance being a mom and an entrepreneur? Like, how do you do it?
I don't. I don't. It's no balance to it. If I'm excelling in one area, something's suffering. You
Yeah.
know, and if something's or excel in other areas, something else is suffering. So I just come to grips with that. I also lean into a village if
Mm.
I have, depending on the season, wherever it is. Like summertime, because we're here in DC on our own, we're able to send our kids up to Michigan,
Okay.
to be with their grandparents for an extended amount of time, and that right there it gives me like some time to like recalibrate,
Yes.
those areas that were kind of falling off, where I'm spinning in all directions and neglecting certain things. And so there's definitely that, not trying to balance, because it's kind of impossible, but coming to grips with the fact that things aren't going to be perfect, and that I'm not going to be perfect in every area, because I only have so much energy and so much attention, um, so much within me to give out. If
Right.
I put everything trying to make everything right, one, it's not going to all be right, and two, I'm going to fall apart trying to hold it all together. So the quicker like people can come to that conclusion, the better. It took me a little while. You do feel feelings of guilt, and anxiety around what balls you might be dropping, but ultimately it's all gonna come together. It's gonna work together for our good. It's just, you know, trying not to stress and worry about it. And then secondly, having that village. If I have my friends. here are like family, so I can lean on them. And then I have a network of babysitters and people that can come alongside us to help with the kids and stuff. Um, yeah, pouring into my marriage, like date nights, check-ins, just to making sure that we're on the same page. And then I think where I spun out of control is like the personal health, like the personal wellness and the fitness and the mental health and attention. I had to write that ship a little bit later too. So it's all like balls in the air, and you're juggling it all. So certain seasons you work more on one thing, other seasons you work more on the other. But it's always like it's spinning, always spinning, it's always in motion. That's the way of life. And the quicker we like accept that and are okay with that, then we'll be more at peace.
Yes, and I think that awareness is critical. That's amazing, because once you're aware of, there is no balance. Like literally, like you said, when you're doing good in one area, another area is going to be off. That's just life. But once you're aware of it, oh, that's so beautiful, because I think a lot of people need to listen to that message and understand that, because then you won't have that anxiety, that stress, and all of that comes along with worrying about, oh, I'm not spending time with my husband or my child or whatever. It's just a season. So that's beautiful.
Yeah, and just be clear with those people. And I say that too, be clear with the people in your life about it being a season too. So I know early on, which led me to believe like, oh yes, maybe I don't want this because I do want that. And what I mean is like, I don't want like the 7-figure business if it's just going to be ran by me, because my son came to me and was asking me to do things and got mad and was like, you're always working, and I could feel his pain within that, and it made me stop and evaluate like what's more important to me.
Right.
Is always working important to me? Because if I'm going to be always working, I might get to that goal, but I might lose my son in the process. So what's more important? So I decided to slow walk it, not get there as expeditiously, because I like to be hands-on, and I don't want to have the burdens of employment or bringing people on to take away the job that I got into it for, and I want to do what I want to do, like I want to do the filming, I want to do the editing, and shooting and all that stuff. So if I'm going to slow walk it in that way, then I have to be realistic about what I can actually accomplish and achieve as this one person, and still try to, hold those balls in the air too when it comes to like my family and my marriage. So again, it's like back to that, being authentic to yourself, knowing what you want, kind of reverse engineering what you actually want, and what you want, because what you say you want might come with some sacrifices that you don't. So consider that also, like when we're talking about balance. Because you might have to reevaluate your overall goal, because it's getting too far off balance, it's too far off kilter, that is not comfortable for you. Even if you pursue that thing that you want the most, you might end up losing what was more important to you in the process. And are you okay with that? Some people are okay with that, but I'm not okay with that.
Oh, that's good. Okay. On a lighter note, I have a question. So what are your favorite apps that you're using right now, or are there any apps that are helping you maintain your business?
Instagram is one of my favorites, because it's more of like it's a visual app. I like, artistic, creative things. And so it's appealing to me for that reason. I like Facebook for the community. I just kind of basically use it for groups. I don't really even post anymore or anything. But using it for those groups, and getting in community with people has been really nice, even though I'm a lurker and I don't really talk. But I'm gonna quit that after a while at some point. Maybe not. Whatever. It's good for that. Some other apps that I use, I love Canva. I kind of use that more on desktop, but I do have it on my phone. I love Canva. I have all the editing suites and all that stuff, but I still like Canva just because it's so easy to use. So if I want to throw something together real quick, it's been cool to do that. And it's just so user-friendly that it doesn't hinder my creativity with like a learning curve, So while I have Photoshop, it's still like, oh yeah, okay, so what do I use this brush for? What do I do with that? And I don't use it enough to like have mastered it, because it's not my thing. But I like being able to design in that. What else? Later. Later.com is cool because, as I said, I'm an introvert. So social media basically drains me a lot of times, especially because I'm an introspective person too. And a comparison, like I compare a lot, so I have to protect my peace a lot of times. And so having Later, which allows me to pre-schedule my posts, post is great. And it also lets you visualize your content too, so you can kind of put it all in the calendar and like get a preview of what it will look like. If you're like a person like me who likes things to look a certain way and be all cohesive and pretty, it allows you to do that too. So that's been a really great tool, especially since I also manage social media accounts for others too. Just on a limited basis. But for the accounts that I do manage, that helps me to pre-plan their content and get that out the way, as a part of my workflow. I don't use a ton of, like, I'm not a big techie person randomly. I have like I'm a tech industry like job or tech industry field, but I'm not a techie person. I'm not into the gear and all that stuff. It's just whatever I can use to get the job done. Once I master that, I kind of stick with that. I'm not jumping back and forth. Now, I can say that in terms of, they have an app. I don't use the app, but I use online. But in terms of my like business productivity, being a person, like a one woman show, 17 Hats is what I use as like my CRM. And that's great for like my bookkeeping, for invoicing, getting out my contracts. You can create your whole system and all your processes, really automate your business. And I really like that for that purpose. So
17 Hats and Later. I need to look at both of those.
My referral code.
Please, thank you. Thank you. I put it in the description too. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So what advice would you give an entrepreneur that's starting out? What advice would you give them?
It's so much I could say. One thing that I run into a lot, it may not even it's not something that's common that people think about. Don't commingle funds. Like, don't commingle your money. If you're doing something for business, have that in a totally different account. Make sure you're like keeping records of that, so you can really get an idea of what it is and how it is that you're doing that. Like, data is invaluable in understanding like your trends and understanding what's going on in your business and helping you to improve it. So, by not commingling your funds, you can really see what your business is doing and also like stay legit and cool on the legal side of things, accounting and purposes and all that good stuff. So starting out, just start out there. Like, even if you don't start a bank account at first because you don't have like all the necessary information back end things, just try not to commingle your funds. Secondly, really make a financial plan of how your business will be run. Like, have that business plan, really think about it. And I think thirdly, I go back to that, really think about it, really be realistic about it. And don't be afraid to pivot quickly. So if you find that you want to create something, but it's not viable for you, so like you can't crochet like 100 baby dolls for people, faster than like once every 5 months, then that's probably not going to be viable for you unless you're selling those crochet dolls for like $5,000. Like, you're just not going to be able to do. So it's got to be, it has to make sense for like the lifestyle that you want to live, the goals that you're setting for yourself, to make sure that, however you're going to run your business is going to produce those, like actually produce those results. And then thirdly, I'd say understand what you have and who needs it. Basically knowing your like target market, and knowing if you have a product or a service that people actually need, that actually solves problems for people, that they will actually pay for, and that they will actually get some results out of. I think that is really important, because we can start out with like a bunch of passion projects and, things that are like really near and dear to our hearts, but it's not necessarily profitable. And that's not to say that you should not do it, but it can suck the fun and the love and the passion out of it if you take something that you're passionate about and it's not a profitable idea, but you're trying to make it so. So love that thing, you might just need to keep it a hobby. And if your goal is to make money, find something that actually makes money, so that the thing that you love doesn't become a burden to you.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, that's good. Okay. And can you tell us a little bit about your podcast? I don't got to be a little bit, but just tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, so Maybe You Like Me is a podcast for dreamers and doers who are who's taking life lessons to level up to look more like Christ. So, like I said, I'm a believer. I'm a follower of Jesus. Like my worldview is kind of shaped, it definitely is shaped around that. And I'm not ashamed to really talk about it. I actually let it lead, most of everything that I do. So, like, even within my business, I don't serve just Christians, but you have to be comfortable with working with me as one. And so, my podcast is basically the space to get out all of my sociological side of things, because like my businesses are like the creative part, but I still have that social part where I'm very empathetic and I'm very like hope driven and optimistic, and I just really want the best for everybody. But I know that sometimes we're hindered by a lot of the same things that we're afraid to admit. So whether that be that comparison or that competing that I was talking about earlier, that most people admit to having, but we all get jealous, whether it be having self-doubts, we all get that, whether it be not feeling like you're enough, we all get that, and whether it be like the wins that you have, like feeling even guilty about being in a good position or doing something well, and just having the guilt of that and not wanting to shine, trying to play in the background and do less when you're called to do more. I just want people to be free enough to pursue what it is that they're purposed to do, pursue their dreams wholeheartedly, to do the things that they know they need to do, but whatever those blocks and barriers are, I want to like call out, like with the Me Too, so that they know it's like, okay, it's not just you're being tormented, but it's not just you. Like, realize that I might have been in that space, or somebody else might have been in that space, and we've gotten through, and we can get through together too. So that's the basis of the podcast. It's a solo podcast. I don't really interview a lot of people, but I will have some people on there, and then those episodes are Maybe You're Like Us. But it's basically literally me telling either stories from my life or things I find in the Bible, or, things that I may have encountered in like culture, what's going on like in the world, and just kind of talking about it from a perspective of like how we feel.
Yeah.
And, how we should be moving, and, what we can be thinking, or how to just overcome like those mental barriers that stop us from doing, what we're supposed to be doing. So. Yeah,
I love that. And you gotta send me the information for your podcast so I can put that down in the description box as well, so they can access it. Did you send it
already? I didn't.
Okay.
So I'll send it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. And we're actually finishing up the interview, but I have one thing. You have to finish this sentence for me.
Okay.
The sentence is faith is, and you have to finish that.
Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. I was trying to get away from it. But it literally is that. It's faith. Yeah, that's what it is. But more practically, faith is just believing in that vision that you saw to begin with, that even though you don't know, I'm going to get long-winded, so I'm going to try not to. Even if you don't know, you can still believe. I think that's what faith is. It's the evidence of things hoped for. Okay, fine. Substance of things hoped for, evidence of things unseen. I'm trying to get away from but that's exactly what it is to me. I think it's dead without works. I will say that. Mm-hmm. I think it's dead without works. Like, you can have the faith, but if there is something that you need to do, you need to do it.
Yeah.
It's a package deal.
Yes. Oh, Alicia, thank you. I appreciate you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with us. And let everybody know how they can find you, and how they can get in touch with you.
Okay, so if you want to reach me for any kind of like video or photo work, I'm at hello@Ali Watson Media. If you want to reach me on like my personal brand level, talk about my book, my podcast, that's at the Alicia Watson on Instagram. My website, I'm working on that in this downtime, so I didn't want to give that out too early, just in case it's not up by the time you hear this. But I will have my website up and running eventually. So yeah, so if you want to reach me, www.aliwatsonmedia.com, at Ali Watson Media on Instagram, at the Alicia Watson on Instagram.
Yeah, love it.